The Pledge of Allegiance. I
pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, we are here tonight for the regular meeting of the Board of Finance, September 16th, 2025. We do have a supplemental appropriation, and for that reason, we offer public audience. Is there anyone who would like to speak in public audience? Joan, if you could just state your address for the town clerk, thank you.
and name.
And name.
I can think of what's strong like a ball. That's okay. I would like to take the opportunity to discuss some of my budgetary concerns.
Name and
Jump
address.
code 26 Whitcomb Drive.
Thank you.
Jump code 26 Whitcomb Drive. Okay. I would like to take this opportunity to discuss my budgetary concerns that should be reviewed by the Board of Finance. They're not listening to me. I have made known the complete lack of maintenance by the Board of Education, leaving tennis and pickleball courts at Henry James in total disarray and a public safety issue. I have been told that many of the maintenance issues at the school are being delayed or ignored, hoping they do not get worse while allocating many assets to special education. I would like to suggest that the Board of Education give the Board of Finance a list of maintenance items in terms of 1 to 10, with 1 being high priority and others in order of priority. There should be a list of costs associated with the projects and the schedules for maintenance. Money allocated to the Culture and Recreation Commission of $225,215 is placed in the non-public school budget, although it is used for the maintenance of the fields at all the schools. This should be included in the operating budget of the Board of Education. The Board of Finance should be made aware of the loss of value for most of the commercial buildings where lowered assessments and value of the property diminished. This will place an undue burden on the taxpayers unless there are severe cuts in the Board of Education and Board of Selectmen budgets. Simsbury has more boards and commissions than all other towns. The boards and commissions require support services from our staff that are mostly redundant. Advocacy groups should not be an integral part of the government. There are 13 appointed boards and commissions designated in the charter: Culture, Parks and Rec, Conservation, Housing Authority, Aging, Disability, Economic Development, Historic District, Water Pollution Control, Public Building Committee, Building Code of Appeals, Board of Ethics, Police Commission, Open Space Committee, Design Review Board. There are 8 boards and commissions that are elected. The elected boards and commissions have the following members: Board of Selectmen, including First Selectman, Board of Education, Board of Finance, Board of Library Trustees, Planning Commission, Zoning Board of Appeals, Zoning Board of Assessment Appeals. All other boards and commissions should be eliminated from the meeting calendar. There are costs associated with each board and commission, including imputed costs. There is a filing with the town clerk for placement on the town calendar, placement or removal of agendas on the bulletin board, and filing all agendas and minutes. The Selectman's Office allocates a room for the meeting, and town staff provides hours of support for agenda items that are costly. Many meeting minutes are written by paid clerks, some members of the boards and commissions, and some by staff. The Economic Development Commission should be removed from the charter, as the commission requires a great amount of town staff input for agenda items that are already an integral part of the duties of our professional staff. There are many costly redundancies. The Board of Education non-lapsing fund should be eliminated, as it is used as a slush fund to cover deficiencies. Additional revenues from completed capital projects should be placed in the general fund, as this is the taxpayers' money. The Board of Finance should take a more active role during the budget process by asking for accountability and efficiencies to reduce costs. Spend to save is not acceptable unless there are strict guidelines for the proposals. The Board of Finance should be the gatekeeper, not the cheerleader, for the revenues and expenditures in the proposed budgets. All of my comments we post on Simsbury Pat and Twitter at Joan Cole. Thank you for listening.
Thanks, Joan. We do have a presentation tonight from Clifton, Larson and Allen on our fraud risk assessment. But before we get to that, I wanted to give Amy the opportunity to make a lovely announcement.
A's.
Oh.
I was- Wow.
Moving on to. Oh yes, so we are going out to issue our debt tomorrow. We have our bond issuance. As part of that, we were evaluated for our credit rating with S&P. I believe a couple Fridays ago. The call went well, and we reaffirmed our AAA bond rating.
So just for the public, because Amy won't toot her own horn, they did recognize strong fiscal management, so congratulations to you on that. A job well done. We're very proud of you for the work you do. And they also highlighted strong policies of this board, so congratulations to members of this board as well, and to Mark for your role as town manager, so thank you for all you do. And the first selectman as well. All right, so with that, I will ask our visitors from Clifton Larson to introduce yourselves, and then let's get started.
Sounds great. Thank you all very much for giving us the opportunity to share the report that we put together with you. My name is Jeff Ziplo, one of the principals at CLA Clifton Larson Allen. I'm part of our business risk services group. And so we have a specialized group, if you will, that do these types of projects for state and local government, not only in Connecticut, but across the country. With me is Erin Perillo. Erin is one of the seniors that works with us, also in the business risk services group. Erin has been with us 15 years. Did I get that right?
18 years, 363 days.
Okay. And I've been with CLA,
It was Thursday, 19 years.
which used to be Bloom Shapiro. I don't know if you all know that. This will be my 34th year. So I've been there for a few years. In any case, what we wanted to do was we're engaged to perform a fraud risk assessment pretty much on the cash handling entities within the town, and that includes both the town and the school district. So from an agenda perspective, I'll just give you a quick overview of the project, confirm the departments that we evaluated, and then talk about gaps and recommendations. So one of the things I did want to share with you is we took the report and we created an executive summary. So the executive summary is on the screen, but we pretty much we mirrored the major comments for each one of the departments. Certainly if you have any questions on the details, we can certainly get into those questions.
Just for members of the public, that is included in our agenda, which is online if anyone has an interest in reading that.
Okay, thank you. And then we can certainly do Q&A at the end of the presentation. So from a project perspective, we performed a fraud risk assessment on the cash handling departments for both the city and Simsbury Public Schools. As part of that effort, we reviewed and evaluated the documented policies and procedures that were in place. We actually came on site and did walkthroughs and interviews of people in the various departments and that we met with. We looked at the revenue sources, the collection methods, the technologies that were used to capture that information, what the deposit process was, and looked for fee overrides or adjustments or the ability to make those and what kind of controls were in place for those activities. From a department perspective, there were 11 areas that we reviewed. You have this in the report. I also just wanted to note that Within the school district, we looked at the cafeteria, student activity, and the Chromebook insurance fund, all areas where cash is handled. Okay? Let me give you a quick summary, and we'll get into the meat on a department basis, but overall, Simsbury did quite well. If you break it out into risk ratings, if you will, critical, high, medium, and low, there were no critical findings. I always call them oh my god moments. There were none of those. We did find 2 areas of high risk that we will be going through and detailing in more detail, and the rest were a combination of mediums and lows, and those are standard things that we do see in many other communities. I think the goal here is to raise the bar. What can we do to implement better controls, better documentation, so that if bad things were to happen or attempted to happen, what are the controls in place that we'd be able to catch the situation and make sure that those bad actors got caught, if you will. So what I wanna do is I'm gonna turn it over to Aaron, and he'll go through the various departments. I'm gonna stop there for a minute and just see, do you have any questions?
Just to clarify, for the public might be interested, this was not done because this board thought there was a problem. It was actually initiated by finance director because there wasn't a problem and wanted to make sure there wasn't a problem. To me, that's a good example of strong fiscal management. It's taking a proactive approach when there isn't a problem to make sure we have proper processes and procedures in place and sufficient transparency of public dollars. So just to clarify for the public, this was not done because we thought there was a problem.
Correct, and certainly when we first started the project, we sat down with Amy to kind of talk about why is this project being initiated, and clearly she shared with us it really wasn't a board, if you will,
No.
or any issue along those lines. It's we need to raise the bar in our financial operations as a whole. Amy has done a very good job of that. One of the other side comments I'll make is it was very clear that Amy, the town departments and school departments all collaborate very well. And to be quite frank, we don't see that a lot in many of the municipalities in Connecticut. And so I think that that just helps to create a very strong control environment, a collaborative environment, and one that certainly meets the needs of the town of Simsbury. So with that, I'm gonna turn it over to Aaron.
And just to go through these, and we'll highlight the ones that we felt were a little bit more risky. And when we say they're higher risk, it's not because we believe things are happening or were happening in the department. It's more of the exposure is there. There's a little bit more risk just if something were to happen to the town. First one being planning, building, zoning, engineering, fire, lands, and this is one of the ones where we saw there was a little bit higher risk where you have multiple people at the counter. And then the second one there, the municipality manual permit fee overrides. So in the system, it allows you to override fees that are charged based on square footage, dollar amount, however your fees are being calculated for the permits. And currently, there isn't any form of formal review of those overrides. So if someone's removing a fee for a permit, it's not being documented or reviewed by somebody else to make sure that it's appropriate in the instance that it's happening. So just because of the dollar amounts and because of the systems there, having an override in place would be either setting up the system to have somebody else look at it or just running a monthly report to see what the overrides were and making sure that everyone agrees with them and there's a reason for them and they're not just happening, someone's not coming in and asking for a reduction and getting a reduction when they shouldn't be paying for it.
Or you had mentioned the possibility of an error where it's been paid earlier and someone else.
Right, in the instance that they gave where the fee override would be appropriate is a general contractor comes in and takes out a permit for a home renovation for $500,000, right? And they're paying the permit fee up front for that full $500,000, but it's just as the full project. Then the plumber comes in and needs to pull a permit for their work, but their fee is already covered in the initial setup. the system recognizes the new permit amount and charges a fee towards it, but the permit fee's already been paid on the large by the general contractor. So in that case, it's appropriate to remove that permit fee from the system, but it should be reviewed and documented that this permit's going with this one, permit fee's paid by X person on this date, waive for this one.
So on a regular basis, meaning probably on a monthly basis, someone should be going into the system and you can run a report that will identify what overrides took place and have someone else sign off that the overrides were appropriate.
Public Works, a little bit lower risk because there's minimal cash coming into the department or cash or checks, but when we talk through them, there's lack of a formal deposit process or setup. Most of the checks they get in, they just turn into finance for deposit. They didn't keep a log of any of the checks they received to make sure they cleared later in Munis or get posted to their account, so it's just kind of money flowing into the finance department. And again, the recommendation is just to kind of formalize that process, make sure that they understand what should be going into their accounts when they get money in, reconciling it, making sure that they agree with it and that all the dollars are showing up that they're receiving. And again, just interoffice mail, sometimes the checks take a while to come in or get misplaced, they don't turn them in timely, so just having that reconciliation log, they can see who received it, when it was received, and if it's been posted yet. Town clerk, again, on the medium to low side, you have multiple people taking cash in at the register, so there's no way to determine who took what cash in. If it doesn't balance at the end of the night, you don't know which person may have made the error or not given the right change. So and also in the credit card processing, they're not integrated with the POS system that they're using, so they're running the credit cards through and then they're manually typing all the information into the system. Just a bit of a tedious process, something to look into. There's opportunities for mistakes or people being busy and writing down credit card numbers and then trying to enter them in later, so the amount that you can limit people actually writing down credit card numbers or having to key them in manually just reduces your exposure.
So as excuse me, as part of that, creating a better segregation of duties and responsibilities regarding to the cash drawers and deposits, and we shouldn't have multiple people using the same cash drawer without reconciling it, between the individuals.
Next one, Parks and Rec, again, on the lower side, they talked about it, the gate person and them having a slow internet connection there, and they're trying to run credit card payments, take cash payments, let people into the parking lot. If they're getting backed up, they're writing stuff down or it may not be going through because they're trying to get people in. Again, small dollars, so not a lot of risk there, but just credit card numbers floating around can be troublesome if they get into the wrong hands. The tax collector, I will say this one's extremely minimal because, as Amy pointed out, after we wrote the comment, it had already been addressed in a subsequent meeting, so when we did the interviews, there wasn't a process to make sure that people were up to date on their taxes before a permit was issued. Our recommendation was to have a policy to verify that they weren't in delinquent tax state before having a permit issued. That seems to have already been addressed in the town council meeting, so you can cross that one off, your list is done.
Social side.
Yeah. So on social services, again, in the reports that are coming through, the finance are getting a list of the deposits in a cover sheet, but they're not getting the MyRec reports to go through with the deposit process. Just adding those two so you can catch the reconciliations early if there's a discrepancy between what's being recorded in MyRec and what's coming down to the finance office. Making sure Munis and MyRec are in agreement so you're not recognizing revenue in the social services or senior center before they're coming into finance, and it kind of saves time at year end if you have any sort of reconciliation issues. There's some additional petty cash accounts There's one petty cash account, but there's multiple sources where cash is coming into and being reconciled there as far as coffee, paying for coffee or donations that come in kind of get put together in a petty cash account that are used through the department. Just coming up with policies to make sure that petty cash is accounted for, you're using it for the right purposes, they're reconciling it timely, and it's not going to purchases that aren't in the town's best interests. Police department, in here again, people are limited to cash or check. There's lots of different services that the police department has as far as fingerprinting, parking tickets, permit applications. They're coming down, they're keeping everything in Excel, they're putting stuff in a cash drawer, having a system to track them in, even something as simple as QuickBooks so that they could reconcile everything. Just to have a better handle on the money and the dollars coming in. Maybe adding a payment kiosk so people can use a credit card or pay online before having the application done and eliminate cash going in and out of the departments. And then also if you have people coming in paying larger fees or for larger permits, making sure there's a second person counting that cash or reviewing the check to make sure that all the information is correct in there. Board of Ed student activity funds, this is again one of the higher risk ones, and as we all know, you see student activity funds in the news a lot for mismanagement or people not using them for the right purposes. We will say we didn't see anything, as Jeff pointed out, no oh my god moments on what are you doing with these funds, but there is a lot of dollar amount involved in these. Some of the issues that we heard about were teachers collecting money and them coming down to the finance office or to the school secretary admins, 3-4 months after the fact turning in cash or turning in checks. So creating a policy, making sure people are following it, who can take money, when does it need to be turned in, are the programs that they're taking money in for approved programs. Another one where a lot of cash comes in is prom sales. Prom tickets come in through student activity funds. No one's reconciling to say we sold 80 tickets to the prom, we should have X dollars coming in, right? It's just money coming in, eventually getting down to the school secretaries and admins being recorded, but just making sure, we sold 100 tickets, this is how much money we should have. And then just
And essentially reconciling it.
Yeah, reconciling it, and then on the expenditure side, the schools have a lot of access to the funds, and I think our recommendation in there is having a second set of eyes on it, making sure that the purchases are to the right people for the right amounts. You're not going through and sometimes people use it to go around procurement pieces. They go out and buy things through the school activity funds because they can just write the check out of the fund and do a quick sale out of it, making sure that those things aren't happening with the funds and that having a second set of eyes through the finance office or another designee to it.
You say these are large funds, can you just give an idea?
I don't know, there's
Total is
hundreds of,
I think it's about 100,000, 200,000.
I was gonna say it's probably close, easily 200,000.
For student activities, does that include athletics? I would assume that would be higher.
With athletics, it's probably around
Sorry, how much?
probably about
300,000.
300,000 with athletics.
So it's not chump change, it's there's some significant dollars there that need to be better monitored and controlled, I would say. And again, not that there's an issue,
Right.
but we wanna make sure that there are good controls in place to ensure that we don't run into any issues.
and that's the kind of the revolving dollar amount of your activity funds throughout the year. Obviously, you're getting a lot of money in and putting a lot of money out, so the actual activity for the funds is a lot higher than just that.
Yeah, that was
$200,000.
my question, cause that's also used for salaries, I assume, for some, like especially in the sports, their fees.
No.
I don't think so, no.
Anything that's a stipend or a salary should be going through payroll.
Better not be.
So what is it
It's
used
not.
for?
Sorry?
What is it used for?
Field trips, you have field trips, proms, different type of student.
Every student class has a fund set up in their name to do different events. The athletics for do pay to play.
We do
So
pay to play.
That
so
money
the
goes through the student activity funds to be used to buy equipment and other
supplies,
items.
athletic trainer, transportation for the games.
I mean, when we budget for that, we do student body activities, stipends, coaches, contracted services and stipends advisors. Is there more in there than that?
And student body activities.
Yeah.
So we do the coaching stipends in there, we do part of the athletic trainer in there. Part of it is paid for out of the athletic fund that Jeff was speaking of. We also do security out of there and I don't know off the top of my head.
I guess I'm
That's
just
probably
saying,
the majority of it.
is that where these dollars are located in the budget we see? Where are those dollars located? Is that a special revenue?
Are you looking at the budget or are you looking at you're looking at the budget, so those dollars are not in the budget.
You're not gonna
Those
see,
would be special revenue fund.
it's
They would
not
be-
special revenue. These are separate funds that are being captured on behalf of students in various grades for various types of activities.
Amy, where would they be in our annual comprehensive financial report? Where are those reported?
So there is a section in our audit report that has student activities.
So what kind of fund are they? Not a special revenue.
It's not a special revenue fund because we're essentially holding the money for them. It's not our money. So
So it's sort of a trust?
fiduciary trust account.
Yeah.
It's a holding account,
Mhm.
right? And what happens is, let's say a class is holding, $10,000, the class graduates. Many times a class will pay $8,000 for some type of gift to the school or something along those lines. Tends to be residual dollars after a class leaves. And I think what Erin was saying is that, there is some process in place to reach out to the class and say, it either needs to go to something or it will be pushed into more of a general use student activity area, if you will. It's a holding,
It's a holding, like a
It's-
PTO or
yeah.
like even in our audit report, I think it shows as a asset and a liability. There's no revenues and expenses in them.
Correct. You hold the cash because you are
Exactly.
in trust of that cash, but the activity from those funds, whatever is purchased or expensed, is just in the back of the financial statements as activity for that fund. It's not,
You're not gonna see a breakdown.
All set or any other questions?
so with the Board of Education, the cafeteria fund, I will say with the person you have in there now, they were doing a lot more in the reconciliation. Part of it, the thing that kind of stuck out is having a policy around how often people need to bring money to the bank or down to the finance office. Right now, they're doing it about weekly, but they don't have a dollar threshold. They get a big day, they don't have to bring it down to the bank. There's nothing to tell them, take it down to the bank right away if you go over $500 in collections or you lock it up in a safe overnight. They have it locked overnight, but they're doing one deposit a week. If they don't get down to it, it goes in the next week. So just kind of creating a deposit and making sure that our policy around how often money should be deposited or brought down to the finance office
And I would go one step further, it's not just for the cafeteria. That policy should be town-wide. And there should be certain thresholds that, if you meet this threshold, you have to bring it down that day, right? If you meet another threshold, it's at the week and you can come up with what those thresholds are, but very important that people are not holding on to dollars, particularly cash, for any length of time. And by policy, it needs to be established. Okay?
And then the Chromebook Insurance Fund, again, revolves around petty cash. There are certain sales that they do around this as far as if a student needs a set of headphones, they sell them for $1, or a student may need to pay for a repair or an upgrade and they may turn in cash. That money is being held to be used as petty cash by the IT department. but they don't necessarily have an actual petty cash account on the book, so they're just making sure that it's reconciled, it's being turned over to finance if they get a large amount coming in, it's being applied to the right account, and not just being used as a petty cash fund for additional purchases or sales that they may need. Finance department, again, I think we touched on this, just kind of creating a policy for cash deposits, when people need to come down at a minimum, once a week, once a month, whatever it comes down to, and then thresholds for certain dollar amounts. The last one we have is around enterprise ERP or Munis. There are some possible integrations that can be used in this as far as integrating Unicity or the tax office into their QDS can have an interface into
Directly into
Munis, so that you don't have to create journal entries and key in activity. You can download at night and post the entry automatically. It's a little bit.
I don't know what Munis is.
Your financial management system is, Munis was the name of the software product about 2 years ago or so. Tyler Technologies changed the name from Munis to Enterprise ERP. So it's your financial management system that you've had for quite a number of years. Few years? Okay, sorry.
Transitioned over.
And then the other part of it is around user training. We did talk through this with the departments and with Amy in the finance department, and Amy's department has gone out and offered trainings to people if they need them, ask people what they're interested in. But a lot of users still said their understanding of Munis was low or didn't have their home screen set up with the right reports that they need to view on a regular basis. So just making sure that users go to the trainings that are offered or get the right information that they need, so it makes their job easier and also make things easier in the finance department.
Questions?
Up to board members?
I just got a basic one. The Current has had some colorful stories, articles in the last few months about nothing about municipals, but about businesses that have been in business, and they found out that somebody in the business over the period of 2 or 3 years has been sending out checks to a cousin or to their own LLC or unauthorized checks. And oh my gosh, it's amounted to large amounts of money, and they finally caught it. I always wonder when that goes on, how that could, I would think any financial control system would catch that, but evidently it doesn't. So why is that not possible in Simsbury, and how would you guys find it if it did? An employee who is sending out checks to unauthorized recipients.
So you have very good, strict controls in place on generating checks out of the Munis Enterprise ERP system. There's appropriate sign-offs, there's workflows that are built into the system. You have segregation of duties and responsibilities that are set up within the system, as well as operationally. And you have vendor vetting. So no one can just add a vendor and say, okay, well, we're getting an invoice for that vendor. So there are some pretty strict controls in place that would identify potential issues along those lines, as well as general bank reconciliations. I think what you're talking about is, and I've seen and read those same stories, you have a person that can create a vendor, because I think it was just in the Current this past
There was one this past week.
right, this
Yep.
past week. They could create their own vendor, they could generate their own check, and they sign the check, and then they did the reconciliation. So you've got 4 key controls all handled by one person.
Right.
When you have a bad actor, they can pretty much, do anything. That person, I think, was writing a check to themselves on a regular basis.
Right. So your answer is that we have checks and balances.
You have checks and balances
within the
and
system so that none of those, each of those procedures is checked.
it's a combination. Within your financial system, there are controls, as well as operationally, there are controls in place to mitigate that risk.
And should that have happened, how would you have found it?
Say, what do you mean?
Suppose all that internally failed, how would you have detected it? Should such behavior be ongoing, how would you find it?
So if it was a single individual, couldn't happen. Once you get two people that are in sync with one another, then all bets are off, because segregation of duties and responsibilities are thrown out the window, because now we have collusion between multiple people, and you really can't control that all that much.
If there were
So-
collusion between two people, would you be able to find it?
So I know as
Go ahead.
part of an audit procedure, when we do these, they do look at check disbursements for the year, and they will search through all of the disbursements for the year for any town employee to make sure that any check written out to a town employee.
Right, I'm thinking
is
about an
looked at.
LLC or a cousin or somebody for whom there would be a kickback.
It would be similar, it would be up to who, if they were large enough to have an audit. A lot of times the smaller LLCs are under audit, don't have any audit requirements. If they don't have debt, the bank isn't asking for it. There's no state statute saying that if you're a for-profit without debt, you'd have to have an audit.
But I think your real question is, if two people are in collusion, how would you catch it?
That's right.
Very difficult, I gotta be honest with you. There's not a guarantee. I mean, again, you have solid people in place within the town of Simsbury, and you have good operational controls, automated controls, and appropriate reviews and sign-offs. That's the best, what we can put in place right now. There's no absolute, I guess, particularly when you're talking about collusion.
Okay.
How many people, how many entities considered a vendor does a town like Simsbury have? Like if you had to go through and like look to see, are these all legitimate? I mean, are you looking through a list of 100 or like thousands?
Thousands. And typically, to be quite frank, to answer your question, they develop over the years, right? And they just keep on adding, and most of the municipalities, I don't know what Amy does, but they don't go through on a regular basis to eliminate vendors. I don't know if you do.
No, we don't. So, well, we did when we switched over from our previous accounting system to our new accounting system, we did do an elimination of the ones that we don't use. But to Art's question, the collusion thing, you would probably need at least 3 people involved for it to happen here successfully, because we have, when you enter a new vendor, our accounts payable person on the Board of Ed side is the only one that can authorize new vendors. She requires a W-9 for all of the vendors. If there is a change to the vendor, so say it's like a legit vendor, but somebody wants to send it to their home address and cash the check as them, she does an independent search for the address. So she'll go on Google, she'll make an independent phone call, she'll make sure it's legit. And then the person that enters the PO is typically the person in the department, the administrative assistant, if you will, and then the department head has to approve it. So you have the person entering the vendor that makes sure it's legit, then you have the person entering the invoice, then you have their department head. If all 3 of them were in collusion, it would be very difficult. But if only 2 of them, I think it would be easier to catch. And then when it comes into the finance office, I've been reviewing the checks and the invoices for 7 years now. I literally sign off and review every single invoice, every single vendor. When vendors are changed in the system, I don't approve it, but I get notified of it. So there's another notification where I'll do a spot check and I'll go in and I'll do a Google search on a vendor if they seem odd or if it's a person or things of that nature. And then when the checks are printed, I get a run of or a PDF file of all the vendors and all the checks that are being printed, and we track the check numbers. So
That's
it would
very-
be incredibly
we have a-
difficult unless there were multiple people inclusion.
Do we have a vendor management policy that says every X number of years that we've gotta go through the vendor list to purge them of vendors we don't use
I don't
anymore?
remember seeing anything like that.
Is that a best practice? Should we?
Every few years, yeah, why not? I mean, I think that makes, the problem is, as soon as you eliminate a vendor, you're gonna use them again, right? But the reality
That would
is,
be a great opportunity for fraud to get a stale vendor that's on the list.
What we see more often is every few years going through vendors that haven't been used in a few years and inactivating the vendor, so it requires somebody else to go back
Yeah.
in to activate them.
yeah, I would recommend a policy like that.
Yeah.
So if a vendor hasn't been used for 2 to 3 years, let's just
As long as they're not still on
terminate that.
contract.
Disable
lasts
the
2 or 3
account.
years,
Yeah.
Good question.
Amy, could you add that to your list for next summer?
You're welcome.
I find Amy's your process for smoking such a problem out to be reassuring. Has the town ever had a collusion problem?
Not that I'm aware of.
When we have seen issues with other municipalities, there's a lack of segregation of duties and responsibilities. It happens all the time. The other is when you've got different departments, for whatever reason, that are using their own systems, right? And are able to write their own checks. That's really what it comes down to. So that is not in existence here.
So those kind of issues are safeguarded with the check system because they involve an actual piece of paper, an actual transfer from an account. But for cash, these type of things, that's sort of why we did the first.
Yeah.
And what process and procedures could we have in place just to prevent that, which is an easier way to accidentally use some funds. Would that be inaccurate?
Correct. And I think making sure that we get cash in the bank as quickly as possible. It shouldn't be sitting around in any way, shape, or form. And again, I think it goes back to a more formal policy on cash deposits and getting cash to the finance office and making that happen sooner rather than later. Right.
Well, Art's asked about what sounds like a kind of quaint old-fashioned kind of embezzlement, right? And the ones I've read about involve, say, spear phishing messages in which someone purports to be the vendor and says, we've changed our account. Did your review cover that type of risk?
So if you listen, and I apologize, if you listen to what Amy said a couple minutes ago, and we walk through this,
I did, but
that you have controls in place, that you have a person, if there's any changes to a vendor address or anything, they do a separate independent, if you will, reach out to the vendor. So they wouldn't take the phone number in a spear phishing or phishing attack and reach out to the person that provided them with the phone number. They're gonna go independently and get the phone number and call up the vendor and do some verification. So those types of controls are in place right now.
Mark, could you just speak very quickly? We do have testing that goes on a regular basis where false emails are sent or links.
Thanks, Chair. We could spend a lot of time, just talking about all the possibilities. I think that one of the things that, and I appreciate the work CLA did is we've got a very strong management team that was, mentioned in our AAA bond rating, but it really goes to the everyday work that's going on, not just in finance, but I think the biggest risk for cash, disappearing is in my experience, 30 years is remote locations. The pool house is collecting, some cash for people who did it at the golf course. So tightening up the cash controls. Cash should not be sitting around for 2 or 3 days, before it gets it in the bank. That's critical. And so we've got some work to do. I think the report identified a lot of strengths, which are good to see, and a few things that we have to work on as well. I was just sitting here thinking, Chair, that my days, 8 years as Hartford's tax collector, and how many seminars and webinars and training I've had on these. Tax collector refunds are one of the primary risks for municipal. The city of Washington DC lost millions in refunds, just to Art's point, that went on for 7 years. And it was a combination of old vendors and a multi-party collusion in the tax office. It was a big deal. And there have been other, even in Connecticut, a few well-publicized issues that centered around the refund of tax collection. So, I know you spent some time in tax and you did a great job there. I think our refunds, as per state statute, go to the Board of Selectmen for approval. They're all posted online. There's a very transparent process about it. I sign off on them, Amy signs off on them, the tax collector signs off on them. And I get a stack of them just to give you some sense of the level of detail. When the Board of Selectmen approves those, there could be 40 of them, 50 of them at a time. It could take me half a day because I'm not just rubber stamping them. I'm looking at them and I'm walking down to the tax office and asking questions about it. I'll give you an example, Chair. There was one I just signed last week that said, email attached on a plate surrender for a motor vehicle tax. Email attached. There's no email attached. Down there, I asked the tax collector, all those emails are filed and they're here if you need to see them. And she said, I'm glad you noticed that and you asked that question. But so you want to look where's the biggest risk? That's what this report does. And I think we're going to have some fun this year cleaning up some of those red comments. So thank you very much.
Just to share with you, we do have some municipalities that are starting to look at not accepting cash at all.
That's what we did.
And there-
We just made the pool free because we kept getting written up and we couldn't get the stats. So we said, you know what? Pool is free. And that was the decision we made, problem solved. Because there was just no accounting for it. We couldn't get it done. You didn't want your lifeguard. Lifeguards were collecting cash. And when they felt like it, bringing it to City Hall. I'll solve that problem darn quick.
So again, these are things that will evolve over time. And I commend Amy for saying, you know what, I need someone to come in and do an independent scorecard, if you will, of how we're doing as a municipality, as a school district. And again, nothing critical. We've got some things that we can work on and we're just gonna continue raising the bar.
I mean, do you have an idea how long it will take to sort of implement, like when we got it? Is this a 2-year process, 1 year, obviously?
No, like maybe after year end is done, give it like a month to get around to all the departments, get the policies reviewed, finalized and for feedback, so maybe October, the end of November.
Can we have an update then in December? Just confirm, that'd be great. Okay. Is there anything this board needs to follow up on? Other than,
No, I think we, great job. Commend, Amy and her staff and the controls that, are in place. A lot of the controls that are in place are not just because they have to be, but because there's a recognition that we need to make sure everything, all the transactions and monies are safe and we get them deposited as appropriate. So all good.
any other questions from board members?
No.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Nice job.
Do I have to give up my seat?
You do.
You're
I
kicked
mean,
out.
you can stay.
Thank you all very much.
Thank you.
Have a great
Thank you
rest
for
of
your
your
work.
week. Take care.
See you, Mark.
See you later.
Bye, Erin.
Amy.
Nice one.
Great job.
Thank you.
move on to the finance director's report, and I'll let Amy start us off on that. You're on page 35. Just following at home, if anyone is.
Okay, no changes to any of the supplemental appropriations, tax abatements or grants, savings initiatives since the last time we met, so I will just go ahead and start on page 37. Under the pooled investments. So you'll notice that last month we had our type of investments listed as the Connecticut stiff account and then the Liberty money market account. And then for this month, you'll see that we added 3 new line items for the 3-month, 6-month, and 9-month CDs. So we were able to invest about $45 million in the CDs. I had mentioned the rates last time we met, and those rates stayed as anticipated. We were able to lock in for the 4.29% at the 3-month, the 4.07% at the 6-month, and then the 3.83 at the 9-month. So we were able to stay around that 4% mark. On the budgeting side, just a reminder that we did budget at a rate of 3.75%. So already we're 2 months into the fiscal year, already well over that. So we will see some savings in our investment line item account. If things stay at the same rate at which they're staying, or even if they go down a little bit, we'll still be pretty good on the investment side. I mentioned at the beginning of the meeting, we have our bond sale scheduled for tomorrow. Our bond rating was affirmed at our AAA rating by S&P. The official statement is included in the document for your reading pleasure. It's a very detailed document, but a lot of good information. It describes all the projects that are going out. And I will follow up. I'll probably follow up after the bond sale tomorrow and send you all an email and let you know how we did as far as rate goes.
What rate did we budget?
I think we budgeted 4.
Okay, so that's our mark.
And then on to the revenues as of August. Page 38, you'll see at the bottom, that there is a projected surplus, 128,734,378. This is from our tax collections and the interest income. The tax collection rate, I don't really have a ton of information to do a solid projection yet. So I just used an average about 500,000 when we get our supplemental motor vehicle and we see how collections are coming in for the next month or so. I'll be able to update those estimates accordingly. And then on the investment income, what we just talked about, we were able to secure at some higher rates than what we had budgeted. The other changes from last time at this year compared to this year is mainly the timing of the payments. The only 2 that were not related to timing of payments is the conveyance fees. We had a increase this year on the amount of collections of conveyance fees this year compared to last year. And then the insurance refunds account, which we had not budgeted for, we did end up seeing a reimbursement from KERMA, so we were able to get an extra $58,000 in revenue there. Any questions on the revenues?
We get reports from the tax collector. How is she seeing collections this year?
So minimal collections in August, but collections for the end of July, we were at the same collection rate as this time last year, over 50%. Yeah, I was right over 50%, 53.72 compared to 53.91 last year. So if we keep it the same trend and our supplemental comes to fruition, we'll have a very sizely surplus this year as well. Moving on to expenditures. Again, so early in the year that the majority of our variances from this time last year compared to this year is timing of when the purchases are made. There was a few items that stuck out that were not timing related. Under the town manager's office, we had the intern in the current year that was not in the prior year. Under the public building commission, the Public Building Commission, we had additional commission clerk charges in the prior year that have not happened this year. The Memorial Field, we had some increased seasonal help. And that is it.
Amy, expenditures are being projected at higher than budgeted. Can you talk about that?
Yeah, so right now we just, since it's so early in the year, we don't do projections until, or solid projections until at least like the first quarter's over. So all of my projections in here are typically at budget, unless I know of something off the top of my head that's going to be different. So the two line items that you're seeing come in at that, the difference between the projected, the 128,087,476, and then the budget of 128,001,696, the difference is 85,507. If you look at page 41, and in the total transfers section, you'll see two line items. You'll see one for contingency reserve for 264,000, and then you'll see one for contingency vacancy for 350,000. The difference of those two numbers is that 85,507. That typically will not stay the way it is when there are salary and position vacancies during the year. The vacancy rate will come into effect, and then the contingency reserve, as the contracts are settled and we do mid-year transfers, that will be redistributed. So just right now, I probably should have just changed it so it came out flat. But that's the difference and why it's showing as over budget at this point in time, just because we don't have any of the salary information for use of the vacancy rate and we haven't done any of the transfers.
When we did the budget, they balanced. So what is changing?
What do you mean they balanced?
Our revenues match our expenditures, and this we've got
Right,
more
but you'll
spending.
see under the fiscal year 26 actual as of 8/31/25 that it's zero because we don't charge directly to that account. And we won't as the year goes on, so those will be offsets to multiple line items. That's why I said like I should have just put it as an actual for now, so it doesn't show over because it's misleading. But typically that is how we track it. We don't charge anything specifically to those line items.
So nothing has changed in our budget, you didn't increase in expenditure. Okay.
That's just how it's showing on the report.
Just wanted to make sure we weren't over budget after a month.
We are not.
Mark, quick question on abatements. We thank you for listing the abatements. Are those, do the tax reductions come down each year, or is it the same amount each year for the abatements?
You know, I'd have to check, I believe they do, they're phased out, right? So it's, I think, is it 10 years or it might be, typically they're phased out over 10 years.
Does anyone have any other questions on expenditures or revenues? Any other questions on Amy's report? Amy, is there anything else you wanted to add?
No, I don't think so.
Okay, then we will move on to supplemental appropriation. Amy and Mark and I had an opportunity to meet with DiCrescenzo regarding the motion that was passed by the Board of Selectmen. We're going to be changing our motion. Transfers are not permitted within the first 6 months of the budget, so we can't go from one appropriation to the other, but Amy was able to reach out to the Trust, and what we'll do is get a supplemental appropriation from the Trust to pay for this supplemental appropriation. For members of the public, the project for the Memorial Hall entrance, they were going to initially construct or fix 2 entrances, one on the right side of the building from the parking lot, which is the current one. They were gonna renovate that and make that easier, and add one on the left. They're going to continue to add the one on the left, but they do not have sufficient dollars to do the one on the right, so they were going to use the Trust money for that. That money will be given back to the Trust, and the Trust will give it back to the town as part of the supplemental appropriation for the pavement area. So what we did is a lot of legal maneuvering, but the effect is the same. We're gonna use the savings that was not being spent from the Trust on the entrance put it back in the trust and do a supplemental appropriation from the trust to pay for the pavement. So it is technically a supplemental appropriation, not a transfer between two existing appropriations, and that will keep us within the letter of the law and not have us acting ultra vires.
So just to be clear, we have essentially two projects. One is the two entrances to Eno Hall, the other is the pavement. The parking lot, it turns out that the combined cost of those two projects is higher than expected,
No, not of the two, of the one project.
of just the
One's higher.
Yeah. So the two-door project came in
right.
under budget. We did actually a supplemental appropriation for them 500,000 3 months ago, and it turned out that was not enough. And so they're only going to be able to do one door.
Right,
So that means that there was savings.
I see.
In part from not doing
Those savings are
the-
now going to be applied
Yes, if they're gonna go back to the trust and then come back to the town. So
for
the-
purposes of the paving.
yes, for
Right, that's
purposes of
what-
the
okay.
paving.
I knew it was something like that.
Because it is a reduction in what was approved by the voters, it will go back to the Board of Selectmen for an official revision. As you'll recall, it's a bonded project and bonded projects do permit the Board of Selectmen to alter the scope of the work, but it has to be done by the Board of Selectmen. It's not something that can be delegated to staff. So we'll go back to them just for that formal approval, although they approved it in concept when they approved the supplemental recommendation to us, so just to dot our i's and cross our t's. So with that, and of course I sent you I wanna make sure I read this right. Move effective September 16, 2025 to approve a supplemental appropriation for the Eno Memorial Hall Parking and Safety Improvement Project in the amount of $110,000 from the Eno Trust. I'm not doing it as I eliminated the transfer language. Amy, if I said that accurately,
Yes.
would someone like to make that motion?
I'll move it.
I'll second it.
Any further discussion on that? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Right.
That motion carries unanimously, and thank you everyone for working that. We will then go on to policy review. One of the things that was noted positively in our AAA bond rating is comprehensive financial policies and practice, of which this board spends many hours working on policies with Amy and Mark at times as well. So we do this on an annual basis, and we'll go through the list. It's fairly extensive, but the points of change are not that large, except for the one policy that has been presented to us on the Capitol. We'll go through some of the specifics there. But Amy, I wrote down, I sent you the pages. We'll make sure that that's what you have as well. The first change on page 47. Do you have anything earlier than that? Okay. The board shall readopt or revise the Board of Finance policies every 5 years. Amy had commented, we actually do this annually. So one suggestion I had was to at least every 5 years.
Yep.
If folks are comfortable with that. Okay, may I have a motion to approve that change?
So
I'll move that.
Second.
Okay, Bert moved, Todd seconded, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
That motion carries unanimously. Then the next one I have is on page 74. This one will be done with language if we approve the changes to the next policy, so we'll put that on hold when we do that combination. So that will be a reconciliation of just to make sure all our policies are in agreement. The next one we have is on page 114. Nope, did I have that wrong? No, yes. We have there the general fund balance reserves of no less than 15%. I my belief is it should be 16, GFOA says it should be 16.7, which is 2 months. I would ask for a motion to change that to 16%.
Oh, right, at the bottom of the page.
Yes,
Change it to 16%?
that's where we are right now.
Okay, I'll move that.
Is there a second?
So, I'm sorry, what is the current policy now?
15 to 17%.
15 to 17, okay. I'll second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay, that carries at 16%. Page 115, the next page, that again, that will be a reconciliation, we'll change those names. There's one change, the second last bullet is just the name of the policy as it currently is that correct? So that's just we could approve the second bullet change recommendation in 115, may I have a motion for that?
So moved.
With the non-lapsing,
The policy for amending the budget, budgetary transfers and supplemental
oh, at the
appropriations,
bottom, at the
we added
bottom,
that,
yeah.
I remember that one.
So we've got, yes. Bert made a motion, is there a second for that?
I'll do it.
Okay, second by Art, all in favor, please say aye.
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 Okay, and we'll come back to the other one if we go ahead and make those changes. Then we'll go on to the combined policy, which I believe Mark has had an opportunity to review and staff, and they sent comments to Amy, which have been incorporated in the comments section, so we'll go through those one by one. The idea here was to combine them all into one document, the two policies into one document, and to incorporate GFOA best practices and some of our current practices.
By the combined the two policies, you mean the capital planning and whatever we're calling it.
I don't remember what the two were called, Amy, do you remember?
Purchasing procedures and guidelines.
It was the capital and CNR policy and the I believe it was the capital asset policy. I actually had it in the beginning.
Rules of procedure.
No, rules of procedure.
Yeah, it's the capital asset policy and this and the CNR and capital policy.
Okay.
Yes, 116.
116.
Are the copies of the two original policies in this packet separate for comparison?
Yes.
Like we're they are, where are those?
The capital asset policy is starting on page 55. And then the capital and non-recurring policy is starting on page 60.
Okay, so we may wanna refer back to those as we do this. Okay, the first page, everyone has had it. Do folks want me to read this since we're combining, or have folks had a chance to read this?
You can summarize it, it's fine with me.
Okay, so what we're doing is to outline the guidance, planning and financing, review, coordination and monitoring of capital assets and capital improvements to effectively maintain and update the town's infrastructure. The policy establishes general financing goals and specific elements that comprise long-range planning and financing strategy, including capital financing guidelines and the transfer of funds to and from capital project funds, capital non-recurring fund, and capital reserve fund. A lot of those are accounting, and those were driven by Amy on some of this. The goals of the policy, we just put in there, I think those are essentially what we've always done, is that right, Amy? Was there anything crazy in there? No. Then the capital asset definition, we went back and forth, I think we used Gatsby and Amy to come up with these. No change there, Amy, is that right? Okay. Capital assets include but are not necessarily limited to, and again, these were taken from Gatsby and a combination of Amy's coordination. Mark did request that we put in a group purchase paragraph, which was not entirely what he wanted, but the best I could do,
Thank you, Chair.
based on GASB.
Appreciate it.
And I'll read that. Capital expenditures are best applied to individual items rather than to groups of similar items, i.e. desks and tables, unless the effect of doing so would be to eliminate a significant portion of a total capital assets. For example, a large order of library books meant to outfit or expand a library facility may be aggregated for capitalization, but ongoing acquisitions to replace volumes and keep the collection up to date should not. So that, I can't remember if that was taken directly from GASB or from GFOA, but that was taken from one of our guiding agencies. Road improvements, again, resurfacing is considered to be road maintenance. Improvements that expand capacity are to be capitalized. Changing one
It should be
lane, that should be one lane road to two, or adding or turning a lane or paving an unimproved road. And Amy, can you talk about the difference between capitalized and not capitalized? It doesn't necessarily indicate where it's posted, because we do some road paving in bonding areas when we do bonding.
Right, so it's really just where it shows up in your financial statements, if it's considered one of your assets or not. So the original asset, so say Hot Meadow Street, which is a bad example because it's not our road, but just as an example. If Hot Meadow Street was originally built, we have a new road, it goes on our capital assets, it's depreciated over the life of the asset. And then any repairs or maintenance to it to keep it at its status quo are then expensed. So the original asset is on our books in our balance sheet as part of our capital assets, just like a building would be, or major infrastructure improvements would be. And then the maintenance associated with it is expensed. So you'll see that in our expenditures. It's basically a GAAP statement versus a budgetary statement. On the budgetary statement, you're only gonna see the expenditures. When the auditors come and do our audit, we also have to do what's called a GAAP statement. And then that's what goes into our audit report at the end of the year, where we have a breakout of our assets, our liabilities. You'll see our balance sheet captures our buildings, our roads, our drains, our manholes, things of that nature. But when you're working on your budget, you're just gonna see revenues and expenditures, and everything is included in those expenditures. But at year end, when we're working on the audit, some of those expenditures are removed and put into assets.
So this section is mostly for accounting purposes, does not limit our ability to bond road payment. Just wanna clarify that in case there was any confusion on that. Non-capital expenditures may be placed in the capital budget that are not capitalized. Those items will be identified and labeled. Examples include, and this is what we've done major operational studies, we put them in the capital budget, they're not capitalized, right? But they are listed in the capital budget. Again, it goes versus budgeting versus accounting requirements. So this is a practice that we have done, so we kept that in there just so that we would make sure. Sometimes repainting the Flower Bridge, is that a recurring expense or is that a capital project? It was large enough that we bonded for it, so that this does not prohibit the use of bonding for major recurring expenditures. Capital asset inventory, this is the town will conduct regular inventory of assets no less frequently than once every 5 years, and this is the current practice, so we just put that in the budget. It's also best practice. Recording of assets, no change, right, Amy, is that okay? Depreciable lives. I think that's just a grammar thing, Amy.
It just added for such assets on the end of number 3. There wasn't anything substantive.
If folks are okay, I'll take a motion to make the 2 recommended minor changes on page 118.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Okay, so those have been approved. Okay, no changes on 119. Then we get to 120. This has been rewritten, so the original again are on the earlier thing, so we're gonna take a few minutes afterwards just to go back and read the original documents to make sure people are comfortable. What do we do here? We added the multi-year CIP. This is required by charter, so we put that in the policy as well. And Amy just added language as may be amended from time to time. Next, we have some comments that the board should discuss. Whenever possible, number 7, capital costs should be financed with means other than borrowing. That's our standard statement, no change. Borrowing shall be limited to infrastructure and facility improvement projects with an estimated life expectancy of at least 15 years at a cost of $250. Is that accurate, Amy? 15 years? $250.
250,000.
Yes. Now, sometimes we have financed sidewalks at 200,000 with bonding. So the question I posed to Amy is what is the right number, 200, 250? I'm comfortable leaving it at 250, but wanted to hear from Amy in particular on that. And I think, I didn't know if Mark had a comment on that as well.
I have no preference between 200 and 250. It's whatever policy your board wants to set, just knowing that we should be following the policy whenever we do go out to bond. So if you are anticipating doing, and I think the sidewalks have increased, but if you are anticipating doing something for 200, then it should be there in the policy at 200.
Anyone have thoughts on that?
It's 250 today?
It's 250 today, but we have actually gone out to bond for 200. So we should adjust it to 200 or not do that. I mean, 200 gives you the flexibility, you can still. I don't think you wanna tie your hands and say you can never go out to bond. We tell Mark, to the extent you can, a $200,000 project, let's try and use cash or pay-go.
Chair, did you just say you would not wanna tie your hands so that you could not do a $200,000 project?
Yeah, so you couldn't bond
So
one,
you-
so
you-
we wanna be able to bond one
So
since we
you prefer
have.
200,000?
I think I do.
That's my recommendation anyway, Chair.
200,000? Go ahead, sorry.
So I'm trying to understand what this says is that if it's 250 or over, it's got to be?
No, it can be.
Okay.
It can be,
It can be,
but we could go as low as 200.
Right. I mean, the
So
question is,
if
do you
we
wanna
don't-
limit it at all? I
That-
don't know.
Well, I
my
mean-
question is, if we don't wanna tie our hands, why have the minimum limit?
Cause you don't wanna get excessive debt, but I'll let Amy speak to that.
So yes, that's part of it, but if you're bonding for something, the useful life should be at least the term of the bond. So something should have a useful life of at least 10 years. And typically that would be an asset that's, 200,000 or in excess, but it can be whatever amount you want it to be.
I mean, I don't think realistically we're gonna go out to bond for a $15,000 project,
No,
but yeah, so I'm okay lowering it to 200.
Amy, did we have earlier somewhere that the useful life was 15 years? I just wanna make sure
It's
that,
15 years here.
It
Where is
says
that?
15 years, at least 15 years at a cost of
right, I was just
$250.
gonna say, why, I mean, if it's, should it be 10?
should it be 10 years?
Could be,
Could be 100.
it could be.
We do 10-year bonds as a regular course, so it should be a minimum of 10 years. What is the best practice there, Amy?
As long as your assets are over the life of your debt, you're fine. Your asset should never be less than the life of your debt, so we shouldn't be bonding for something that's only gonna last us 5 years.
We should not.
Should not.
Let's get through this, I say 200,000 in 10 years.
Well, the question, yeah, I think we could do that, but Amy, should we change that language to not to exceed the life life expectancy of the project?
So we could, I mean, the 15 years, I actually don't even know if this policy was before or after me. I think the 15 years was just to be conservative, and would give the board the opportunity if they ever did want to do 15 years, No, that doesn't make any sense, hold on, I just lost my train of thought. Life expectancy of at least 15 years and a cost of 250,000. I think I wrote this at one point in time when I first started, and I did do it based on documentation from policies of other towns or GFOA feedback. And that's also how we had determined that anything on CIP would be 250,000 and anything under 250,000 would be CNR. Let me look back at that one just to see where that came from, where that initiated from, and if I had any notes about the basis behind it.
That'd be great. Why don't you look at that and then see if you wanna add the useful life minimum. But like I don't wanna bond for 5 years, right? So something.
Yeah, I'll take a look.
Okay, so we'll do that. So we will,
We have bonded projects at $200,000, notwithstanding the policy of $250,000. And what is the consequence of having taken something out to bond?
It's just not a good practice, that you're not following your own policies.
usually we try and use capital reserves, or we'll do 2 years of sidewalks, so it might be a 400,000 project, so we could do that. So the problem really was sidewalks. Originally, when we passed the sidewalk policy many years ago, the plan was to just spend $2 million and bond it and take care of all the replacement of it. The new prior town manager came in and said, no, I wanna do it piece by piece every year, so that did not happen. So that was an unexpected, good or bad, I make no comment, but it was a change from how it was initially proposed to be funded. And so I think the funding source became, I guess we could have thought it out better with our policy, is one way to say that. But we can fix that now. So we will, based on this, we will bring this policy back one more time next month, but let's just continue to go through and we'll try and get the rest of it knocked out until we have that information. The town intends to set aside sufficient revenues to finance ongoing maintenance needs and to provide periodic replacement and renewal to keep its capital facilities and infrastructures in good repair to maximize the capital assets' useful life. Comment
this
here
comment
was
makes
the town manager recommend we define set aside, what it actually means, implies we are not budgeting for the particular expense, but merely moving funds to capital reserves, for example. This continues to be an important conversation. I don't know exactly what you meant by that comment, so I'll let you explain it.
Just the idea being defined, set aside a little bit clearer, right? If there's some language that you could craft that would be clearer to.
So I guess my that's fair.
Yeah.
I mean, the ideal goal there is to budget maintenance in the operating budget.
Right, yeah, I'm with you.
We cannot always do that because we are entering a very tough time. We've seen that sometimes, but we should always try to budget maintenance. Obviously, we couldn't budget maintenance, painting of the Flower Bridge in the operating budget, but their routine recurring maintenance should go into the operating budget. If you have an extraordinary maintenance thing, like, I don't know, building needs to be painted every 15 years, that might not go into the operating budget. But, so the idea was that it is a goal to put recurring maintenance expenses into the operating budgets.
And I think that's important, Chair, just looking ahead, because you see, and you're starting to see it already, but as we all work better together on budgeting, you know, the natural tendency is to work ourselves out of these surpluses that we're seeing, some of which are unavoidable and some of which we know, you know, is because of conservative budgeting. But to the extent that we're going to no longer underspend expense lines because we're doing a better job of budgeting for it, you're gonna have lower surpluses. And so less to move to cash reserves and less to use to pay for CNR, and thereby less under that analysis, less to enable you to bond less, right? And all of these things are interconnected, and so we're looking ahead to multiple budget cycles, and you know, we just have a concern that there's increasing pressure on CNR,
not only caused by the increase in costs, but also by, hopefully, smaller surpluses. Right? So when you look at your year-end surplus, I look at it from the point of view of, well, this percentage of it is expense side driven and this percentage of it is revenue driven. And I'm more concerned with the expense side because it means we are potentially over budgeting those lines. And so we first look to them for potential cuts in the next year or to understand if they're underspent because of timing issues or whatever. But whatever, the macro view is that we want to reduce the expense side surplus. And if you do that, it's a closed environment, right? You're gonna have less of a year-end savings. You're gonna have less money for CNR coming from cash reserves. At the same time as the pressure to make those purchases is growing. And so those are the things that we wrestle with. And I think for that reason, looking at the other issue, slightly reduce the 250 to 200, allowing you to bond for a little lesser amount, I think is appropriate. I agree with the chair, completely eliminating it doesn't make any sense to me either. But I think part of what this board does a good job at is understanding the picture for next year and the out years. So I know that that's a lot, but my stress is CNR. I gotta share that with you.
Let me bring you back to this paragraph 9, right, which is essentially expressing a goal or a hope that we're gonna pay for ongoing maintenance. But I'm not clear on what it's trying to say about that, other than that it should come out of the operating budget.
That's what we're trying to say.
Why don't
And I
you
think-
say that?
I think the
Yes.
set aside means to me that we're putting it over here to use it later.
Yeah, why don't we
And-
say we it's our goal to pay for maintenance out of the operating budget?
Right?
Perfect.
Perfect.
It's
We have a good number of discussions at the staff level about, taking a look at the historical uses of CNR, how much, which of those items should rightly be in the operating budget.
No, I'm sold. I
And
think we've resolved this.
that's a problem, right?
well, you could see it if you know that you're gonna have a routine maintenance every 5 years, like what you do with reval. Sometimes you budget a partial each year, so that's why I use the satellite side language, but I'm okay with doing the
I think we're saying the same thing,
Yes.
and we share the concern. It's a delicate and closed system, so
so the town's
every
goal-
action has a reaction.
The town's goal is to pay for maintenance out of the operating budgets. And to provide for replacement and renewal to keep its capital facilities and infrastructures in good repair. Alright, so those were just aspirational goals. Alright, so we'll make that change. If folks are comfortable with that. Okay. We won't vote on this policy until next time, so Amy, if you could change that language there. Then we had, to the extent feasible, all capital projects associated with Simsbury Farm Special Revenue Fund and the Sewer Use Special Revenue Fund will be financed from user fees and retained earnings for those funds. Question was raised about the Special Revenue Fund for Simsbury Farms, so we could add in proportional amounts to that. Cause some of them are used for what do you call the playground, or they might be used for some of the fields that the public uses, but some of them are used for the pool.
Yeah, I
That
don't
should-
understand what you mean by
Proportional to what?
proportional amounts.
To the use. So Simsbury Farms has always been a debate. When it was first formed and agreed to be purchased, don't worry, it will pay for itself. You won't have to buy equipment, you won't have to pay operating support for this, it will take care of itself. Over time, we found that there was a fairness issue because some of the people who use Simsbury Farms were not paying fees to use it, so it was not being paid. There was a public use to it, park. The town has over time contributed to some of the expenses associated with Simsbury Farms. But the principle of equitable taxing is that those who use the service should pay for the cost of it. So if it's a specific program and not everyone's using it, the people who use the program should pay for it, with a big caveat that sometimes the town should absorb the cost to help the poor or those who cannot afford it, with that caveat included in it. So the question is, what proportion of capital spending should the town be contributing towards Simsbury Farms for capital projects, like the skating rink, for instance? Only skaters use it, so the fees pay for that. Should public dollars be paying for that? I don't know the answer, but I think there is a case to be made.
But it's open to the public, I mean, that's, people who use it make a choice, people who don't use it make a choice.
Yeah, I mean, but
Saying,
there's
you know,
just,
that
I mean, that's
I
a,
don't walk on certain sidewalks, but
but it's a certain GFOA, there's a fee, you don't just make a choice to use the skating rink, you make a choice to
for it.
pay to use the skating rink, that's a different.
but that's not what, I was just focused on the
So your
on the comment
point
to the
is that,
policy.
for example, the tennis courts are free.
But no, they're partially free, but sometimes they're used for paid programming, so
Right.
some percentage of that paid programming should help contribute to the asset. Question is, how much of public, and I don't know the answer to this, so that's why I raise it, but how much of public dollars should be used to support areas that are being paid, that we're charging a fee for?
A subsidy, basically.
Yeah,
And some of this come up because in the last budget cycle, we were asked to give money, I don't know if I'm using the right words here, but we were asked to give money to one of these funds that had a huge balance already.
correct.
And these are my words,
Yes, yes, no, exactly.
so that's what this is attempting to say is,
Yes,
to the extent feasible, which is kinda hard on a, not really policy language, but you're saying if there's money there, use that first.
yeah,
And then the commentary is, well, most of the money comes from the golfers, not from people using the playground. So are you using all of the golf money to fix the playground? Is that the comment on the
well,
policy? Is that-
that's been sort of the debate, that
Right.
where does that money come from and how is it being used? Should we segregate the golf thing off? I mean, the whole idea of the golf is it was meant to help supplement the Simsbury Farms, and it was viewed as one whole thing. We have golf users who pay the same amount and live in other towns. Is that an equitable payment thing? I mean, these things get more complicated. What I was trying to aim with for that is using the language that I found from GFOA. If you have the fee-based thing and you have the reserves, you should tap specific reserves before you tap general reserves. So maybe we could just say something like that. But sewer always pays for their capital from the sewer use fund. They never use town money for that.
Gets into the overall subsidy policy.
It does get into the overall subsidy policy. We saw that with the memorial pool. It turned out the town was subsidizing keeping the memorial pool open, but only those who paid a fee were actually using the pool, and maybe 10 other people who did laps. So that's not a good use of public dollars when you got a limited thing. So then how do you do that? We could take that paragraph out if people aren't comfortable with it. We wanna give some thought as to how we wanna do that, but right now Simsbury Farms has, $1 million something in reserves there. Why are we tapping, what we don't want, and this is sort of the Linda Schofield philosophy, which I agree with, is you don't want reserves upon reserves upon reserves upon reserves. There should be one reserve. And so if you're sitting on that amount of dollars, why, and what is it, we have asked, actually multiple years, what is the right amount of reserves for Simsbury Farms? And we have not been able to capture that. I think the analysis, because it's so variable, dependent on the weather, what is the right amount of reserves? We're well above the 20%, the 16% recommended for GFOA for the general fund reserves. So you know, why are we hoarding money there instead of using it first? And
So
So
for this, I mean, can't you just say, I mean, I don't know if there are other special revenue funds, but to the extent there's a special revenue fund associated with a project, those funds should be looked at first.
that's a much better way to say it.
And it's, I mean, it's not saying use first, they should be reviewed first for use or something like that.
I think that's what this already says. I mean, I'm reading the comment which is concerned that the facilities do not bring in enough revenues to pay for needed maintenance, repairs or improvements. If that's the case, then the funding isn't feasible. The funding
Correct. That's why
prescribed by this policy isn't feasible.
Right.
So I don't see that as an objection to the language that's proposed. I think it's okay. You know, this is aspirational and the reality is we're going to address the details every year in the budget anyway.
And that's the time when the argument could be made, hey, wait a minute, you know, the general fund should be used for partially because the public uses this part, or no, this is really only being used by fee users, it should be paid by the general fund, or this is being used for golf or.
And the phrase "to the extent feasible" leaves room for the kinds of actions that Bert's talking about.
But Todd, talk about your concern there.
I'm feeling uneasy with this equitable taxation discussion, which is a bigger discussion than this. I just don't see where that ends. People say, my kids don't go to the schools, why am I, I don't play golf, I don't do this. Then you're just paying as you go everywhere. I just don't understand that concept in a municipality, in a community.
So
And
I'll send you.
I haven't thought a lot about it.
Yeah, I can
But,
send you some of the research, there's some research behind it, but you can agree with it or disagree with it. I mean, the question is, we have a big fund balance there. What's the plan for it? There's no plan for it, and so.
I'm not uneasy with the fund balance, I'm
Yeah.
uneasy with the other part of the conversation that I've never even kind of put my head to, but okay. No, I'm fine with this language.
Okay.
Amy, is there other language you would recommend there? I mean, when I talked with you about it, you thought that if feasible, left enough flexibility. Are you having second thoughts on that?
I mean, I don't have second thoughts. I mean, to me, it's just I mean, maybe we could add some language in about like it should be discussed as one of the options or something like that instead of like to the extent feasible. It just like clears up that it's
Okay.
not the only option, but it's a option and it should be reviewed.
Alright, Amy, you wanna take a stab at that language for the next time? Okay. And Mark, one of the things you will find that we will be asking for you in November or December is a plan. What is the long-term plan for the fund balances in sewer, which also has a huge reserve? Simsbury Farms, huge reserves, and
Sewer and Simsbury Farms are the only two.
residential property is like 1,000%. I mean, smaller, much smaller dollars, but so what is the plan there? And
I think we had something for the Simsbury Farms Fund, if I
We
remember
did.
correctly.
Before I got here, we
Yeah, there was a plan to utilize those funds for capital, and then sewer use, I can send something from Tony, I've asked him about that before. Cause they're gonna need a complete it's state mandated at certain points in time where they have to upgrade their facility, and that's why we check out Clean Water Fund loan prior, and they're essentially saving up, if you will, for that next big renovation that's gonna be state mandated eventually.
that would be great. I think the public has an interest in knowing sort of if there's a big cash reserve, why aren't we tapping that first specific? And it makes sense to share that with the public, what is the plan and why are we doing that? So that would be great. Alright, so we'll look for adjusted language there from Amy on that, try and capture. Evaluation of capital projects, this is the Waiting for Godot. I don't know if anyone has read that play.
Yeah.
I actually acted in it, Chair.
Did you?
On the London stage.
That is awesome, one of my favorite
West End.
plays.
I was the son, somebody's son, and my only lines were yes sir and no sir. But the complicated part of the script was there were 40 yesers mixed in with 60 yes or nosers, and you had to get it exactly right. It was my finest hour,
So then you know what I'm talking about.
I understand.
So we, as the
Highlight
public.
of tonight's meeting.
So we've been asking for prioritization and capitalization criteria. And I've spoken with the first selectman and she said they do have some.
one.
It just has not been passed by the full board, so we're waiting for that. And we can incorporate that into this policy if we get that. Did you guys do that already?
We brought it up on our agenda this last week, when did we meet?
Last
week?
Monday,
And it was used when we did CNR and we plan to use it for capital and we asked for any feedback on it. I'm waiting to hear if I get any feedback, but other than that, that's the plan to use the schedule that we set up in 2024.
So if we could get a copy of that, we could
Yeah,
think about
we can easily say.
transitioning that language. This was holding language for the most part, as long as it
It's in our
incorporates
agenda, so I can
Well,
just
this
send it to you.
completely ruins the play for me.
it was a great play.
Since now you have Godot arriving and
I call it the sequel.
So we will get that, but I will say, I mean, we could keep this as is and just use your criteria, cause
It's
it's
pretty much,
it's the
we
same.
have percentages and a room for override.
And
But we do have pretty much the same,
these
with
standards have been
percentage.
around since the 1970s, so they're standard.
we have percentages assigned to them.
As is your right, and we would hope you would do. Alright, and then our request should be further reviewed by the board priority listing. So we took that language to make sure we could accommodate any of policies that you guys come up with for how you prioritize. Just use the criteria, we don't tell you how to use them,
is it the list below or the list above?
the list above. Oh,
Isn't the list?
the list above, and then we asked you to rank, but if you're we prefer you to rank them each one,
Oh, I see what this is.
yeah, but if you, I mean, I
Chair,
don't,
can I ask a question?
yes,
Is that
Yeah, so that
not
should-
protocol, but I've just been wrestling, on my own in my dark hours, the ranking between Board of Ed projects and municipal projects, right? So asking my board, I call them, my board, but the Board of Selectmen to rank municipal projects, great, gonna knock that right out of the ballpark. Asking the 6 Board of Selectmen members to rank Board of Ed projects. I wanna understand that maybe just if you could help me, I'm wrestling with that because I know that you, Chair, and I have spoken about it, that the board has asked for ranking for some time. And I think the ranking is necessary, but can you comment
sure.
on that?
Yeah, so the way I think about it, and you don't have to do it the way I think about it, but the way I think about it is generally the town manager and the superintendent get together with whoever's doing capital, and I assume it's at this point, the town engineer would be Tom Roy, and with the finance director. The finance director tells you you can only bond for 5 million. Superintendent, town manager, Amy and Tom Roy come together, okay, using the criteria approved by the Board of Selectmen, incorporating the criteria that the Board of Finance says use, which every other town in America uses. Recommend the ranking. Recommend what should be funded within those criteria. It's given to the Board of Selectmen. You say, Board of Selectmen, we use the criteria you gave us, this is what we came up with. Board of Selectmen goes, well, why did you do this? Why did you do this? Can you talk about this? Can we see what went into your thinking? And they make minor adjustments if it's done. Once you have good criteria that everybody's using, things fall into place. It is, and people think it's sort of mechanical what we do if it's on the CIP, but I was just reading Mr. Brand's book on this literally the other day, and he said actually capital planning is one of the most political parts of municipal budgeting because you have many different stakeholders who view their one area as the top priority. And so the job of management is to take all these considerations and not do the top priority. I'm gonna give the top priority to the library, the parks, the schools, is to take a look at the priorities of the town and what rises to the top. The top priority of, say, and I'm picking on the library, and I don't mean that in particular, but the top priority of the library might be the lowest priority of the town if you've got a roof to replace, a boiler to replace, so it might not make the ranking. So I'd view it as get the criteria correct from the Board of Selectmen. The first stab is taken by the management team. Generally, I would think whoever you want to include it, maybe it's Amy, I don't care who it was, but it would be Amy, Mark, Tom, and the superintendent of schools. And you figure out what can work within the parameters of the policies that have been passed and the criteria that have been passed. Make your recommendation, then it goes to the policy boards to adjust. That's how I think about it, but
That isn't different from what's been done. I think what I've interpreted the ask is that the Board of Selectmen assign a ranking to, 82 projects.
also the
And
reason,
that-
that's mostly for CNR because we cannot always fund everything you ask for. And the reason why we ask it again is because if we get surplus money or something comes in later or something needs to be done in advance, you don't come into us and say, hey, can you fund my lowest ranking thing because I couldn't get it in the budget. You say, oh, this was number 7, can we do this earlier? We're gonna have savings over it.
Yeah.
So it enables us to fund things.
And it worked very well. I mean, as Wendy said, we did the ranking last year with CNR, with the Board of Selectmen, and that worked. And we had, a few different colored lines on that ranking list, which were a little, there was some consternation there, but we were able, with this board's help, to get additional funding from cash reserves to increase the 5-year payback, and so everybody got what they needed. There was a lot of collaboration and the ranking worked well. Where I wrestle with the CIP ranking, and we didn't do it last year, is because CIP is a 6-year look ahead. CNR is a 1-year look ahead. I know what I've got, I'm gonna fight for a little extra money. And the superintendent and I and staff do exactly what you said, Chair.
So I would,
But on CIP, it's a different kettle of fish when you don't know school reconstruction projects, you don't know roofs, and we're still holding to this board's guidance to no more than 10 million every 2 years until that's hopefully.
so this is what, I think I took this from Tallinn, but I can't remember, one of our neighboring towns. And the reason why they do this is just sort of shows, like roof is gonna be a high priority, you gotta replace the roof.
Well, it may not be if you can repair the roof. This is where it gets.
Well, that's why
The roof
you,
is a great example because I might.
that's why we asked for the ranking.
No, yeah, but I don't know if the board is ranking, if the Board of Selectmen is ranking capital between Board of Ed projects and municipal projects, you start to get into the town government is silos, however we wanna, work around that. You've got 3 elected boards and they each have their purview. And so are we.
Let the Board of Ed, they do their own ranking and they can get it to you. So at the end of the day, you have to pick the projects and
I know,
recommend them to the Board of
I got
Selectmen.
it, but
So-
is asking the Board of Selectmen to rank 6 years of CIP without knowing when or if we can get back to bonding more than 10 million every 2 years.
Well, that's why I would do,
Without knowing what the school reconstruction landscape or build looks like, right? I don't know, Chair, I mean, I'm conveying some
Is
difficult.
your problem that the Board of Selectmen is stepping on the toes of the Board of Education, or just that it's hard to know how to prepare a CIP for 6 years ahead?
Yeah, I think that, the very respectful, I think we had a good process on CNR. CIP is a lot more challenging because, as I said, it's multi-year. And it's I don't think it's stepping on toes, it's really an issue of qualification and subject matter expertise, knowing and the amount of time. Now, I think that any member, could spend the inordinate amount of time necessary to get up to speed on these things. I'm not saying they can't do that. But our boards are elected, volunteer, unpaid boards. And I will just say clearly, that you get when you reach out to electeds, and not just here in Simsbury, but anywhere, you get a slightly different level of engagement from different individuals on boards and within town governments, right? So some are gonna be more engaged and eager to get into it and others won't.
So that's why I recommend you follow Government Financial Officers Association on ranking and prioritization. Typically, and I can't speak to how you guys are doing it because I'm not involved in your process, but management plays an important role in presenting the rankings based on the criteria that the Board of Selectmen has done, using your expertise. So that is the role of management, is to present what you think is best using the criteria that the Board of Selectmen has approved per GFOA. I mean, I can send you information from them if that would help.
Are we saying, maybe we're saying different things. I mean, we're the staff and the administration, both at the school and on my side, we could put together the plan and subject to the rankings, to the weightings of the rank. We can do that, it's a negotiation.
Exactly.
But when you say take it to the Board of Selectmen
Well, they have to
to
vote.
rank the projects, you're you know, that's where I start to not quite fathom what we're doing. Am I asking for them to weight projects between the Board of Ed? They don't know what the
So I think
what the life expectancy.
when I say ranking, perhaps that was the wrong word, is to fund the top priorities of the town and make sure that it's publicly known how that's done. That would be done by them doing the criteria, you making the recommendation based on the criteria, they voting for it, they have now ranked the projects.
I think what's what's
Yeah.
presented here is just really step one. I mean, everybody's
Right.
gotta prioritize A, B, C, D. Look, you know you're gonna end up with more A's than you're gonna be able to fit into your CIP.
True.
So so the Board of Selectmen and the Board of Ed have to get together and discuss what are the top projects that are gonna fit in the right criteria.
Is that, in your view, is that a joint discussion between the Board of Ed and the Board of Selectmen?
I mean, it's typically been done between management and then Matt presents to his board, they have to Board of Ed has to recommend their projects to the Board of Selectmen. Board of Selectmen has, by charter, has to vote on all the projects. I mean, that's the structure of the charter.
So in essence, this seems
To be what we've done.
like, yeah, but like the process preparing a budget, right?
Exactly.
Professional management is making
Exactly.
recommendations to the Board of Selectmen. The Board of Selectmen then questions you and exercises its rights as an elected body representing the public, and then either accepts your recommendations or modifies them. But I don't see why you think that's
Well, we-
problematic.
No, I don't think, I don't see why it's different from what's occurred. When, you know, in other words, the budgets have been adopted by.
That's why this policy is written. I don't think it's a major change in what you're doing. It was meant to encompass that. In the past, we have not seen the criteria ranking that is being used.
But
We've asked for them.
I understood you, Chair, to say that you'd been asking for the Board of Selectmen to rank capital for a long time and that it hadn't happened, and so
CNR.
just
Last year was the
CNR,
first time.
not CIP?
Well, CIP is ranked, there's only a few projects in the CIP, so yes, I would say more on the CNR side. And the idea behind there is there may come a time where we're not gonna be able to use capital reserves entirely for CNR.
Exactly.
If the pensions, depending on what you guys negotiate, and there's a gap in the funding there, those dollars may need to be used to supplement the pensions. Or if there's a real economic crisis and we get less revenue, those dollars may have to go somewhere else, in which case they're not available for CNR. If you have not ranked them, we can randomly cut them by alphabetical order. But if we have a ranking, we will cut your lowest. We will try and fund as much as we can, but if we don't know what your priority is, we just randomly pick, and that is a crazy way to do it. Or we have to have multiple meetings in addition and we delay the referendum.
Thanks, Chair, that does clarify a couple of the questions, thanks. I don't know, Wendy, did you?
I don't know if I can speak. I was gonna say, we did do that for CNR, we ranked and we cut
Yes.
off. The problem there was we didn't get the Board of Ed CNR list till the very end after we had done all of our rankings and had to loop that in, so that was difficult for us. And then we had to call in, I think we called in Brett, is it? We called him in to help us because we didn't have the information, we just got the list. So we didn't know the priority then, so it would help to have a priorities list from the Board of Ed given to us. The other thing is that part of our criteria that we set up was using our goals and town manager goals to assess whether the value of it, which is not necessarily the same goals technically as the Board of Ed. And we don't get a ranking from the Board of Ed. I feel like that's kind of where you were going, Mark, in that we're ranking all capital, but we're getting from the Board of Ed, we need these things. I'm not belittling them, but like the bleachers or the box, whatever, the bathrooms, we may not think that that's a priority over something happening at Eno, cause it's not in line with our top goals. So maybe there's a way that the Board of Ed ranks their stuff too by some criteria. Maybe they do, Amy might know that, but that's just, I see what Mark's saying. It's hard for us to rank Board of Ed projects if we're the buck where it stops, but we're not totally responsible for it.
I mean, one thing,
The reason this says Board of Selectmen is because those have to come through the Board of Selectmen.
correct.
Yeah.
So I don't think it's absolving the Board of Ed, but I think maybe that's something you need to ask for.
Yeah, I guess it is something we need to ask for.
Yeah, that's not
I'm
on
asking
us.
now.
Right.
That one we have no control over,
Right.
good luck with that.
We'll ask.
But
Mark
I
will
mean,
ask.
you could do it multiple ways, there are many ways to do that, say, hey, we have this amount of money, can you rank within here? I mean, you could do that and give it and just, I think it's complicated, we haven't had CNR money in the past, but the Board of Ed, they are an independent board, the charter is set up so that capital does run through the Board of Selectmen, it does make it difficult, but if this is done well with criteria, honestly, the little group that I just described, the professionals, are gonna make the recommendation. And you guys have a plan on how to use those dollars over the next 5 years, and you're gonna use it to the most important effect, and it involves negotiation between staff and the two boards, and you try and get to the position where we're doing the best possible thing for the town. And thankfully, I think Mark does a good job, Amy does a good job, Tom, Matt's very responsible as well, so it's a good working group. I have confidence that you can work it out and make recommendations to the Board of Ed that they will support and recommend to the Board of Selectmen, and that the Board of Selectmen will support with minor tweaks. I mean, there may be some tweaks in there after discussion, as is there, both boards right. But
I can tell you, Mark, this is before you came here, a couple of years ago, we had a meeting about a supplemental appropriation for Latimer Lane. Because there were cost overruns and we had to expend additional funds, but we couldn't pay for every part of the original project. And we said, you can't get everything, we're not gonna pay for all this, and lo and behold, the Board of Education came with a list of priorities. And they were ranked 1 through 7, and I think we approved the top 5, we should have approved the top 4. But we got them to do it, and you could do that too.
Thank you
it's,
very much.
the reason why ranking comes important is cause we don't have all the information when we set the goals of the budget. Information changes iteratively throughout the process. So by the time it comes to us, sometimes we need to make last minute adjustments, and the ranking just helps us do it in a more efficient manner and a more transparent manner. It's not just picking favorites, not.
Good.
So that's sort of the thinking there, we will fund as much as we can. When we have to make the hard choices, we wanna know what your top priorities, so we fund those instead of what we think are the top priorities. It's
Thank you.
crazy. Okay. Capital financing, this was Amy, do you wanna keep that in? Some people have asked for that, how do we fund capital, so we threw it in there, but it doesn't have to be in there. It's up to board preference, is it helpful?
Doesn't
I
really
thought it was
say anything.
No, it's very neutral, but it's more for the public, how do we fund capital?
I like it.
Okay,
I like it, cause I
Thank
think
you.
that's kind of a mystery that
It is.
it at least pushes you in the right direction for how.
okay. The interesting thing about capital is when you put CNR and the CIP together, the amount of funding by taxes is very low. Most of it is funded through sources other than taxes, current year taxes, capital reserves, bonding, grants and all that, so it is fascinating. Monitoring and progress reports, this is our current practice. So we kept that in. Reserve fund. I put in the language, this is slightly different than when we had approved it, but this is actually what the statutory language is. So I just used the statutory language because that's the enabling language that we have, and it seemed to fit what our current practice is. Amy raised a concern, I just wanted to make sure that I understand what your concern is there, so you wanna talk about your comment there?
Yeah, so we don't just use the fund for capital and non-recurring expenditures or we don't use it all for property tax revaluation. And then the cost of conservation and development, I guess maybe it could come out of there, but so we've used it for the last budget year, I think we used like 250 thousand to offset some motor vehicle stuff, but we use it for capital projects, not just CNR to offset. I mean, we've used it in various places, not just CNR property tax revaluation related and conservation development related, so.
So this is for, I thought we had it for capital and non-recurring, so it could be used for both. Does that language not, do you need us to be more specific than that?
I would update it just because I read it as capital and non-recurring based on how we've written the other policies
So you wanna
of capital
clarify?
and capital and non-recurring.
Okay. That was the intention of that, I think is written by this legislature, was to be used for capital and non-recurring expenses, so not for operating expenses, in other words.
Yeah.
So we can change that language.
Why don't we make it 4 topics, 1, so capital expenditures, number 2, capital and non-recurring expenditures, that'll make it clear.
Okay, perfect. Amy, if you could make that change?
Yes, but does that limit us in the future if we needed it for, say, a one-off, so to speak? Like what happened with like the motor vehicle revenue where we knew we were gonna get it back next
So
year.
that's the dilemma I have, because we are only allowed to do funds for
Yeah.
a certain purpose. This is literally what the statute says. If we can do that, I'm happy to add that expansive language. Maybe that needs to go through council if we can add that.
Right, I'll ask
Otherwise, we should keep a higher unassigned, higher either assigned or unassigned fund balance in the general fund so that we have that. You know, maybe we wanna go to 17% then, I don't know. But we should check with council because this is literally just straight out of the,
We could also simply say that the capital reserve fund will be used for the purposes authorized by the statutes 7/359 through 368.
we could do that. But then somebody has to go back and look it up.
Right.
I'll do it.
Either one would be fine. This is when I was just cleaning up the language, seeing where did we get the authority to do that and what does the statute say?
Feels good for anything other than an operating expense?
Well, they limit it to the plan of conservation and development and capital projects and what was there was the third thing in there? And property tax revaluation.
But we've already used it for something other than, we used it for the motor vehicle?
Yeah, so we've used it for other stuff, but I mean, we could also just rename the fund too. I mean, we call it capital reserve, but like I know Judith used to talk about, first of all, don't call it a debt service fund, but like a mill rate stabilization fund. And then it's not limited to capital.
So
I don't
that-
know, I just don't wanna set a policy where we're gonna limit ourselves and then go outside the policy and it looks like we're not following our policies.
So why don't you check with Bob as to whether we could change the name of it more broadly? I think we have to have the authority, I think we have that authority that we are enabled to create funds,
You
but just check with Bob because in relation to this fund, cause it
Okay.
does get a little wacky, but maybe the simplest thing would be use Bert's language as recommended by the statute and for these other purposes and change the name of the fund. So Amy, if you wanna follow up with Bob on that and see what he recommends, I'm open to that. Are folks good with that?
Does it? So it has to be consistent with that statute.
Well, that's the question for Bob, right? The question is what funds are we authorized to create? We can create a fund for, like if we get a capital grant, we can create special revenue funds for that. generally, the rule is, and this is why this is an enabling fund, is you cannot tax for savings or hold savings or over 1 year. But it does, because of the recognition of capital and because of the GFOA standards, and we just saw the rating agency, they gave us high marks because we use our surplus to put it towards capital as part of a closed system, the mark reference, so that you don't then have to borrow in the next year or you don't have to tax in the next year. Could you get rid of it? Sure, and tax for it, but then you run the risk of coming in not in surplus. And it's so variable. You literally cannot budget an exact budget. Revenue comes in crazy, you have savings or an expense comes up, so how do you do the cushion and what's the right amount of cushion? Our board has generally been comfortable somewhere between 1% and 3%, which we have pretty much regularly come in except for that 1 year. And that's pretty standard, and when you look at what other towns do, Massachusetts is a little bit higher, they recommend. But our board has been comfortable with 1% to 3%, and that has been a funding source then for capital. To your point, you're very focused on capital, that then becomes too much and it's an overtax, Mark is correct. Too little and suddenly you can't fund capital and you're taxing anyway, so it's all part of a system. This way it enables you to come in without cutting it too close to the margin, maintaining the AAA bond rating, which saves money. So this is why this is a recommended best practice and one that was highlighted in our AAA rating. Called out, actually, they use it, they refer to it as PAYGO. And I think that you had mentioned the threshold of 4 mils, we can double check the statute, but I think that's literally right out of the statute.
Yeah, I didn't know if you wanted, because 4 mils is a mil is like 3 million for us, so that's about like 12 million. I just didn't know if you wanted it that high.
I would never want it that high, but I just put in the language of the the statute. I mean, each year the Board of Finance is gonna make a determination how much is too much. I can't imagine any board ever saying do 12 million, but if you were saving for Squadron Line, for instance, or another school that you wanted to save for years, that number could get big. And that's what some towns do, is they save for a major school construction project in a fund like this, so that they don't have to bond as they get closer to the bond rate. So that's why they do give you some cushion with the 4 mils. But we can adjust that. Why don't folks give some thought to what the right number is.
So you're saying they'll just start adding to the mill rate in advance, and after 5 years they've saved enough?
Oh, so you
Is that
wouldn't
what you're
really be adding to the mill rate. So the way we get surplus is
And to the reserve.
mostly from revenue, right, that comes in that we could never have budgeted for. Like the state said, you're not getting this grant, don't budget it for, and then psych, here's a grant for $700,000. What, I mean, you can't budget for that, it comes in, you could not have lowered the mill rate by budgeting for it, it would have been irresponsible to budget for it, but now you have the surplus, it could go in there for the capital project for the next year. You can't, I mean, you just couldn't budget for that. We had that problem with interest rates that we saw. Amy consulted with our expert, what should we budget it at? They advised us, we went with the expert's opinion, and then psych, mill rates blew up and we've gotten a lot of extra revenue. It would have been irresponsible at the time with the information we had to budget more revenue than was recommended than our expert.
But what then does this limit of 4 mils apply to?
It means the amount that could be in the fund. So after you have that, if you hit that, I don't know what's triggered.
Well, no, it's saying that you can raise up to 4 mils in your annual levy, in your annual tax levy into the fund, just not more than 4 mils. But I don't think that we would ever tax for $12 million to put into this fund.
We're as I understood what Lisa was just saying, we're not talking about having a particular budget line for this purpose. It's just so.
It gives you the
That being the
flexibility.
case, then I don't know what the limit is.
Well, so the idea would be if we decided we're gonna do, for instance, not that we're doing Squadron, but because that's such a big school and we know that there's a need there, someday we're gonna do Squadron or some other school, and we say, gee, if we do this, that's gonna be a huge mill rate shock. what if we commit to doing $1 million, we'll tax $1 million a year for the next 10 years, now we've got 10 million when we hit the mill rate shock. Some towns do that, I'm not sure I would recommend doing that, but that's
Okay.
the idea behind.
So that's, in other words, this is putting a limit on a dedicated budget
Yes.
item of 4 mil.
Pretty big limit.
I mean, some towns do, what they will do is they do budget a capital contribution to capital projects in their operating or they'll cash budget. We do it with the surplus, we do it afterwards, but it's the same dollars, you're still
Yeah.
using tax dollars, whether in the current year or in the next year. It's all part of the closed system wherever you do it. The way we do it does protect the credit rating. It does enable you to do actually some, I think, better budgeting and not run into a
So
huge.
this simply allows us to do that, and if someday Mark wants to add a ballroom to town hall, he can go up to $12 million a year.
He could,
Good choice of examples there.
yes, I'm sure, and I'm sure the Board of Selectmen would fully support that. I don't object to taking it out. We can make it more restrictive. I don't think we can make it more flexible, so that's, I mean, why don't you consult with Bob on that one, Amy, and you can make your recommendation. I can't imagine we'll ever use that. But then going on to the next page. And this is the one we go back and forth on. When this was initially proposed to us, the recommendation was 50,000, that we keep a minimum of 50,000 in there. And we referred to that as the thing that breaks number, page 24. Something always breaks for $50,000, or there's a failure of a berm, if you'll recall, we had a
Right.
berm failure for 60,000. Something always happens.
It's called the Roy effect.
Yeah. I don't know what it is, but something always happens. You know, we've gone back and forth, what should be the minimum in there? At the time we did this, there was no money in there. We had just started the fund. How much should we keep there? Like right now we have about 4 million, we'll probably end up after we close out the budget at $5 or $6 million. Do we say to Mark, go ahead, use it all, or let's leave at least 500, let's leave at least 200 in there for the following year?
How long has it been, 200?
We don't have one right now. We don't have a minimum. I know, I think Glastonbury was 500, I think they upped it to $1 million. We don't have to put that in there at all, but
I think it's a good idea to have a minimum in there.
I
Just to
do.
make sure that it doesn't all get spent and
Gives you some flexibility for things break. 200 seems reasonable, cause Amy, I think most years we've never hit that for an emergency thing, right? And we do have general fund reserves and a true emergency if we had to. But this is just, and then, you know,
Use it during COVID, Chair?
What?
During COVID, did we not?
No.
Oh, okay.
I mean, you know, I would like to get back to the process of budgeting a contingency there that has to come to us for approval to release, cause then we don't have, it doesn't compete in the supplemental appropriations, but and make that an annual appropriation, not one that carries for 3 years, because use it or lose it, and then it doesn't go away, it's still there, and then next year you can budget it again. So it's always there. Next one, capital project fund, these are just the description of the funds, I don't think we made any changes there. We had asked Mark or Amy if they were gonna make a recommendation on the general fund traditional payback to do that in September, that did not happen, so we'll go ahead and keep those at 416 and 530. That may come back to us next year, happy to look at it over the summer, but not in the middle of the budget process. But you have sufficient reserves that will be able to handle whatever requests you need. Question?
what are these numbers?
That's the traditional payback that we have budgeted for really 20 years. It's just a straight dollar amount, they budget 416, it gets paid back, it's sort of a revolving loan. So we'll budget, they do a truck, they have to pay back a fifth of the truck every year until it's paid off. So we front them the money, but every year it's a replacement. We did that up in the engineering room.
Right, but it's just a weird number.
It's just been there for It's been there forever. We can make that change. It's been that way forever. It's no different than tar. It's been the same number for 20 years, Town Aid Road.
I think that 416 is in the Constitution, isn't it?
I know, it's just there. I mean, it is what it is. It's there for now. We have expressed the willingness to look at it, but not in the middle of the budget process when we have to make other decisions.
I have no better number, it's just, it looked so specific.
Yeah, just it's been that way for, 20 years. I don't know why that number was chosen. And then accounting guidelines, I think that was Amy. I don't know what the comment on number 4 was meant to be.
Seems to say that variance from the policy authorized by the Board of Finance has to be recommended by the Board of Selectmen.
I don't think it does. Cause it's already in our policy, but
I don't think it's a big, it doesn't really matter.
okay. I mean, Amy, while you're talking with Bob, why don't you just run that by him too, just make sure. You can add it or not add it, whatever he recommends. Proceeds from the sale of town-owned property may be deposited into the capital projects fund, the open space fund, or the capital reserve fund. A common town manager, other subsections do not require two board decision. All transfers from fund to fund require two board recommendations.
Isn't sale of open space required to be deposited into the open space fund by ordinance already?
When it was created by the Board of Finance, they were adamant that it did not, that it required coming back to the Board of Finance.
That was my understanding, but you know, I'll defer to the board, it's not.
No, well, let's send it to Bob. Amy, if you could pose that as a Bob question as well, please. Do you have an opinion on it, Amy?
I don't even know what the ordinance says, so no.
We'll check.
Okay. If it's authorized by state law, I know you can't pass an ordinance that is in violation of the charter authority. So unless that overrode the charter, I don't know.
Predates me, so but well, you know.
I can tell you that Linda will tell you, who was there when it was passed. It was not initially funded, it required the Board of Finance to fund. I don't know the status though, but I'm open to hearing what Bob has to say on that.
Okay.
I don't have a strong preference on that. I'd like to follow the law, but whatever. Oh, then the 3-year lapse, that's gonna go to charter revision. It's very difficult to understand what that means in the charter.
I didn't write it.
Yeah,
Can we just add, so this is something we're adding to the charter?
well, this is what the town charter, I just put it in there because we were letting, it doesn't really include vehicles and equipment, but we let CNR projects go for 3 years and then we found that they were not actually being spent. There was a lot of
I
money
thought
that
we
was.
shortened it even less than 3 years, didn't we?
I think we wanted to, I think that's the plan to do that for those projects. We were gonna talk about maybe doing 18 months
That's
or
what I thought, yeah.
I mean, when I talked to Mary, she said, no, they used to just do it as an annual appropriation. If you didn't buy the project, the appropriation goes away. It doesn't mean it disappears into the atmosphere. You can then budget it again if you need it, or you could come to the Board of Finance for a supplemental if there's a delay, a supply delay or something like that. But I think that's one we should give a lot of thought to. And again, I put that out there for this board's consideration, not that I have a strong opinion on that, other than we've seen a lot of, as Mark has seen, a lot of CNR projects that were approved but not done And the question is, why are we approving them in the current year? Cause we're getting a backlog, and that doesn't make a lot of sense.
Do we know like as of today what the number is for like what the dollar amount would be if we cut it up at 18 months, what the dollar amount would be if we cut it up at 3 years? Like how much would go back?
So
We can do that for the quarterly or for the year-end results.
That might be interesting.
Well, I can tell you that the Charter Revision Commission is going to be addressing this and other provisions at its meeting in first meeting in October, probably. So we should get recommendations in place for that.
I thought we picked 18 months because it kind of spanned the budget and a half, and people could add it back the next time if they said, oh my gosh, we needed this.
the question is, can we legally do that? So we would need to get from Bob. That's another Bob question. I mean, I don't know. The problem with capital is it's super complicated. As you can see, there's lots of issues in there, and I don't have the answer for all of them, but I wanted to put this out because I think we need to clarify a few things. But these are issues that have come up. So, well, I don't know. We wanna do a meeting, it may even make sense to do Amy, me and Bert, you're working on skip that one, alright. Alright, so Amy, do you feel like
Would you like a motion?
do you have enough guidance here to know what to reach out to Bob to and to try and draft some language for the next meeting? And one day we will get this policy passed. Alright, so at this point, can I have a motion to table this to our next meeting?
So moved.
Second.
Any further discussion? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
That motion carries. Okay.
So
then-
all of the other changes we've already moved and we've made, it's just this one last one, the whole document.
Yeah, and then the tie-in language, if we
Yep.
if we approve this policy, we'll have to go back and fix those. So Amy can make the changes of the policies that we've done,
And if the
tabled and,
on my budget.
what?
Oh, if the charter revision changes section numbers, then we have to go back and
But that won't happen till 2027. We'll have that time to
So you're safe.
true it up.
It can happen in December.
Oh my goodness, I know. Okay, then we have the minutes. Does anyone have any changes in the minutes?
I not only have none, I think they were exceptionally well done and Kathy deserves commenting. I move acceptance of the minutes, but I think they are very well done.
Very thorough.
Was that a second, Todd?
That was a second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second, motion by Art, second by Todd. Any further discussion?
I'm gonna have to abstain on this. I wasn't at the meeting.
All in favor, please say aye. The motion passes with one abstention by Bert Helfand. We have the preliminary official bond statement. We have one member in the audience who may be interested in this. It looks like that. It is in our minutes, really great information, stats and statistics worth looking, everyone in the public. I hope you take a look at it because it really gives a good picture of what our town is like, how much debt we have, what our population is like, a lot of great information there.
he said we have one member in the audience who might be interested. I was thinking we have 100% of our audience that would be interested.
I know, I think I forwarded it to you last year, or the last time we went out to bond, you had asked for a copy, so I assume you would like another copy, and it's now posted as part of our agenda. What?
Is that online?
Yes, in our agenda packet, it is absolutely listed. Alright. Any other questions? Alright, may I have a motion to adjourn?
Move to adjourn.
The motion carries unanimously. And Mark, sorry, we ran a little over too.
Oh, I won the $5, we're good. Thank you, Chair.
For over 40 years, SCM
has been the voice of our town,
bringing us together through local programming,
education,
and live broadcasts.
SCM isn't just about television.
It's about empowering our community,
ensuring our voices are heard during government meetings,
and celebrating milestones
like our high school graduations.
But today, SCM faces a challenge.
Our funding structure is based on television subscriptions.
And it's no secret, people have been cutting the cord.
With a shift to internet-only subscriptions,
SCM receives less revenue,
even though all our programming is freely available online.
We need your support.
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 Your donation can make a difference.
It will ensure that SCM remains open,
continues to educate our youth,
and keeps our community informed.
Thanks to SCM, I've been honing my creative skills, helping me work towards my college degree.
SCM is crucial for keeping our community connected.
SCM isn't just here to broadcast local events. They're actually preserving Simsbury's history.
Join us
in preserving Simsbury's voice.
Simsbury's voice.
Together we can ensure that SCM continues to thrive
for generations to come.
Visit our website
or scan the QR code on your screen to make your donation.
Every contribution
counts.
Thank you for supporting Simsbury Community Media,
where your town,
your schools,
and your government come together.